Good morning, everyone. I wanted to talk to you today about getting started with your memoir. So the first thing that I would do is open up this memoir document, and I would have that up on your screen. And then the next thing that I would do is I would open up this document, Getting Started on Your Memoir. This has a lot of good hints and tips about writing your memoir today. And it says, use the following guide to develop your first draft. If you are unsure what to write, begin by pulling golden lines from memoir sessions 1, 2, and 3 for inspiration. If you're still confused, try reading or listening to some of those mentor texts from last week and try to make your story look or sound like one of those. For today, take a look at this document, and you can see right away that there are visuals that give you an idea of 5 characteristics of a good memoir. It really should have some character relationships. It should have dialogue, which we know are conversations between 2 characters, and we use quotation marks to show that each character is talking with some transitions like I said or she declared. Sensory details. What are you hearing, smelling, seeing, tasting, or touching in these scenes? Are there ways and places that you can add more sensory details? You can always come back and add sensory details later, so don't get too caught up in trying to add sensory details now. Action or conflict. Instead of just saying, I went fishing, can you bring the reader to the scene, to the lake, to the ocean, and actually describe what you're doing with your fishing rod, how you are catching the fish, what types of fish that you're catching? Inner thinking. This is really important to do inner thinking when you're writing your memoir, where you are showing the reader how you felt about a particular situation or scene. The next thing that I want you to think about once you draft some basic ideas of what you do, and you can even see here where I'm telling you step 1, make an outline of character, setting, conflict, and theme. Can you add some bullets under each of these categories with some details from your life or previous writing sessions? And I think a good idea is literally to just copy this, like I'm doing here, and paste it into this document. And get rid of the highlighting, obviously, because you don't want your entire paper to be highlighted. And use this as a starting point to start adding some details, right? Like maybe the characters in my memoir are going to be me and my father. And maybe my setting will be South Philly because that's where I'm from. And also Douglasville because that's where we moved. And even Shillington because that's where I work and have worked for a very long time. Conflict. Maybe I want to talk about insecurity, right? Maybe I feel like I never fit in around here, right? And then maybe the theme would be accepting myself for who I am. Okay, so now I have a basic idea of kind of what, the characters that are going to be in my scenes, where my scenes are going to be set, conflict, theme. And now I just have to come up with what will my story be? How will I write it? And that's where I would go back to this document and I would take a look at some of these ideas, right? Am I going to tell my story chronologically? Meaning, am I going to tell my story from the time I'm young till now? That seems like a really long and boring story. So I don't know if I would do that unless I have really exciting events between then and now. Maybe I want to try a before and after where I start with an event that kind of changed my life, like moving to Berks County when I was only 14. I might want to start there and my first day at Daniel Boone and then flash back to what my life was like before I moved here and what my life has been since. I think that sounds like a good idea, but let me just look at the other ones just in case. Flashback or flash forward. That sounds interesting too. combining two moments across time and connect them with reflection. And you can see I give you a little example, starting with a story about meeting your best friend in kindergarten to your friendship now. I could even do that. My friend Maria and I have been friends since nursery school, and we're actually still very good friends now. And there's a lot of things that happen in between, and I can fast forward to when we're going to retire. Obviously you're not at that point, so you might want to look at my example that I have written there. Journey structure, that's really cool too, where you begin with a funny little story, maybe of getting your fishing line all tangled when you're trying to learn how to fish, to several fishing trips where you continue to struggle, but you get better and better, to now where you're winning fishing competitions. And circular structure is also very interesting. This is when you begin and end with a repeated image or scene. My example to you is maybe you begin the story when you were little at a Royals hockey game, and then you continue through the story where you ask your parents to join a hockey team, and fast forward to now where you're actually playing on the ice at the arena, and maybe in a junior pro league or something like that. So you can see step 3 then is write more than you think you need. Maybe come up with your basics and your structure, and then, go back to your draft. And I'm going to write that maybe I want to do that. This structure, the before and after, is what I chose. And so I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to plop it right into my document here, right? Before and after. Start with an event that kind of changed my life. And I'm going to change the words to my. So I'm focusing on it, right? And explain how my life was before and then after it. So now looking at this, I have some sort of idea, some sort of draft about what details I'm going to add little by little over the course of this week until I have some paragraphs in there. And if I'm looking for ideas about what to write, remember, you already wrote a lot of these things. So go back into Google Classroom and scroll back down to that memoir session 1 and take a look at what you drew and get some ideas for your setting. Take a look at session 2 about your identity web and get some golden lines about you yourself as a character, that maybe you want to throw, maybe there's some really good lines in there that you were really proud of yourself for writing and you want to add to your memoir. And finally, don't forget these personal issues, because this is really the theme of your memoir, right? What you struggle with and maybe what gets in your way sometimes when you try to achieve your goals. Okay, we'll talk more about memoir when I get back in the classroom, but for today, your goal is definitely to draft your memoir and try to develop as many paragraphs as you can using these tools that you have today. And I'll see you when I get back.